All right, let's dive into a real classic today.
Yeah.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
It's a
I'm excited about this one.
This is a good one. A lot of people have read this book, and it's really a game changer for so many people.
It really is. And I think, when we chose this one, we knew we were going to get a lot of feedback from our listeners who have been impacted by this book.
Yes, absolutely.
And hopefully, by going through it together, we can
Mhm.
help people kind of extract those core lessons and see how they apply to their own financial journey.
Absolutely. And what's brilliant about Kiyosaki's approach is how he uses his own life as a case study,
Yeah.
contrasting the financial philosophies of his own father,
Right.
we'll call him Poor Dad,
Poor Dad.
with
Yeah.
his friend's father, Rich Dad.
Right.
And both dads were successful in their own right,
Right.
but their views on money couldn't have been more different.
And that's what makes the book so interesting, right?
Exactly.
Because I think most of us growing up, it's like you go to school, you get a good job, you work hard, and you'll be set, right?
Yeah.
And Kiyosaki kind of throws that whole idea out the window.
Exactly. And that's where the first big takeaway comes in.
Okay.
The rich don't work for money, money works for them.
Hmm.
And he hammers this point home right from the start
Okay.
with the story about working for Rich Dad as a kid for a measly 10 cents an hour.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. It sounds pretty rough, right?
Yeah.
But there's a powerful lesson in there.
I mean, 10 cents an hour.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's like nothing. Even back then, that wasn't much.
No, and he wasn't exploiting him.
Right.
He was trying to show young Kiyosaki how most people get stuck in what he calls the rat race.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's like you're on a treadmill, right?
Yes.
You're working so hard, but you never really get ahead.
You're not going anywhere. You're
Right. And so it's really interesting because when you read that, you have to think about, like, where am I on this spectrum?
Exactly.
Like, am I building a solid financial future, or am I caught up in this rat race?
And I think that's where he really challenges us to take a hard look at our own financial habits.
Yeah, and that's where he introduces one of his most important concepts, which is the difference between assets and liabilities.
Yeah, assets and liability.
And he really makes a point of saying most people, they don't even know what that means.
They throw those words around, but do they really know?
Right, exactly. And so he breaks it down very simply. He says, assets put money in your pocket.
Yeah.
Liabilities take money out of your pocket.
It's like a leaky bucket.
It is.
You got to patch up those leaks.
Okay, so give me some examples if we're thinking about our own lives.
Okay, so your fancy car,
Liability?
liability, big screen TV,
Liability.
liability, even your house if you're still paying off a mortgage.
Oh, that's a liability.
That's a liability. It's taking money out of your pocket every month. Now, things like stocks, bonds, real estate that generates rental income. Those are assets because they're putting money back in your pocket.
Okay, so it's not just about what you own, it's about what's
It's about cash flow.
cash flow. Is it coming in or is it going out?
I like that it's very simple, right?
So simple, yeah.
Assets in, liabilities out.
And he tells this great story about Ray Kurchuk,
Oh, yeah.
founder of McDonald's.
Yeah,
Now, you might think he got rich selling hamburgers,
right.
but he actually understood the real money was in owning the land that those restaurants sat on.
Oh, okay. So they're really
He was building an empire of assets,
not just a burger chain.
not just a burger chain.
Interesting. So he was thinking bigger.
He was thinking long term.
So how do we apply that to our own lives? I mean, that's a great story, but what can we learn from that?
It's about shifting your mindset from working for money to making money work for you.
And that brings us to Kiyosaki's next big idea, which is minding your own business. Yes, and now he's not saying that everyone needs to become an entrepreneur.
Right, because when you hear that, you think, oh, I got to start a business.
Right, but it's about building that asset column alongside your day job.
So you can still have a job, you can still be working.
Exactly. He even shares his own experience of working at Xerox while building his real estate and stock portfolios.
I like that because it makes it feel achievable, right?
It's attainable. It's not like, oh, I got to quit my job and...
Right, you can take these small steps toward financial independence
Yeah.
even while you're earning a paycheck.
And a big part of minding your own business is becoming financially literate.
Right, you got to understand the rules of the game if you want to win.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive with your finances, not reactive.
And that's where he takes it even a step further when he starts talking about the history of taxes and
Yeah.
the power of corporations, right?
Yeah, he really wants you to see the bigger picture.
Right, and like, where does money come from? How are these systems designed?
Exactly. And how can you use them to your advantage?
And one of the interesting things he talks about is that taxes weren't always meant for everyone.
Yeah, he kind of busts the myth that they were always intended for the middle class.
And he's not saying whether that's right or wrong. He's just saying, hey, this is how it started.
It's about understanding the history
Right.
to make informed decisions.
And then he talks about corporations as a way to protect your assets.
He shows how they can offer legal protection and tax advantages that individuals don't have.
And he keeps it pretty high level.
Yeah.
So even if you're not a business expert, you can still kind of grasp the key takeaway.
Right. It's not about the technicalities. It's about the big picture.
So it's really about understanding how these systems work is essential if you want to make informed decisions.
Exactly. You can't play the game if you don't know the rules.
Right.
And Kiyosaki's next lesson is one of my favorites.
Okay.
The rich invent money.
What does that mean?
He argues that financial intelligence isn't just about saving or working hard.
Okay.
It's about finding and creating opportunities where others see none.
I like that.
And he illustrates this with a really mind-blowing story about Alexander Graham Bell and the telephone.
Oh, yeah, where he tried to sell the patent, right?
Imagine offering your invention to a company like Western Union for a mere $100,000.
And getting rejected.
And getting rejected. Talk about a missed opportunity.
Yeah, and it makes you think about, like, what are those moments in our own lives where we didn't see the potential...
The what-if moments.
Right, or we were too afraid to take a risk.
Exactly.
And what's interesting is that Kiyosaki doesn't just focus on the positive.
Right.
He actually talks about the obstacles that can hold people back from achieving success, even if they understand these concepts.
He gets real about it.
Yeah, and he lists 5 key reasons why people stumble.
The 5 internal roadblocks:
What are they?
fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance.
Okay, so these are like the inner demons we all have to kind of battle.
That'll have them?
Okay, so let's break these down.
Okay.
Fear. How does fear hold us back?
Fear can paralyze us. It can prevent us from taking action, from taking those calculated risks.
He gives that great example of his friend who backed out of a real estate deal because he was worried about having to fix toilets.
It's funny, but it's also true.
Yeah, sometimes we let those small things.
They become big things in our mind.
Right, exactly. What about cynicism?
Cynics criticize more than they analyze.
Okay.
They let fear and doubt cloud their judgment.
So they're always looking for the reasons why something won't work.
They're looking for the negative.
Okay, laziness.
Laziness is often linked to a lack of financial education and a desire for instant gratification.
Okay.
It's about being willing to put in the work to delay gratification.
And I think that's a big one for a lot of people because we live in a society that's all about, getting what you want right now.
Instant gratification.
Yeah, so that's a tough one to overcome.
It is.
What about bad habits?
Bad habits, especially those related to spending, can really sabotage your financial goals.
And he contrasts the spending habits of the rich and poor.
Right.
He does. And he talks about how a lot of times people who aren't wealthy, they'll buy things to try to look rich.
They'll buy the fancy car, the expensive clothes.
Right. And it puts them further into debt.
It's a facade.
And then what about arrogance?
Arrogance often stems from insecurity and a fear of admitting what you don't know.
Okay.
It's about being humble, being open to learning.
So if we can tackle these 5 roadblocks...
Then we can start building a solid foundation.
Right. And then he dives into, okay, what can we do?
A nitty-gritty.
Right. Like, what are those practical steps?
He lays it all out in his to-dos and still want more sections.
I remember those. It's a lot of actionable advice.
It is.
So, like, taking action, finding mentors,
Always be learning.
continuing to learn. And he even gives those specific tips like pay yourself first.
That's a big one.
What does that mean, just to clarify for our listeners?
Pay yourself first means setting aside a portion of your income for savings and investments.
Before you do anything else.
Before you pay bills, before you buy anything else.
It's like telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went.
Exactly.
Okay, and then he talks about mastering one financial formula before moving on to the next.
Yeah, like focusing on real estate or small cap stocks.
So find something that works for you.
And become an expert at it.
And he also emphasizes finding good advisors.
People who are knowledgeable and experienced.
But he also gives tips on how to spot an advisor who really has your best interests at heart.
Like looking for someone who's actively practicing what they preach.
No, I like it.
So they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
So you want someone who has skin in the game, not just someone who's giving you theoretical advice.
Exactly.
And that's where Kiyosaki's genius really shines through, right?
He connects Rich Dad, Poor Dad to something much bigger than just making money.
Yeah, like it's not just about the money.
It's about finding your purpose and living a fulfilling life.
And that's where he brings in that story about his former classmate.
Oh, the one who was super successful,
But miserable.
but miserable.
Like, what's the point of having all the money in the world if you hate your life?
Exactly. It's a wake-up call.
It is.
It reminds us that true success is a balance.
Right. So he's prompting the listener to ask themselves, like, what does my path to financial freedom and a fulfilling life look like?
Yeah, what does that look like for you?
What are those things that I'm passionate about? What kind of impact do I want to make?
How can you align your financial goals with your values?
It's a powerful question, and it's something that I think we'll unpack further as we continue our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, there's more to come. And that really leads us to another key concept from the book, right?
Okay.
It's this idea of understanding the different types of income that exist.
Oh, yeah, I remember this part. It's like, not all income is created equal. Right.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki breaks it down into three main categories.
All right, let's hear it.
So you got earned income, passive income, and portfolio income.
Okay, and most of us are probably familiar with earned income, right?
Correct. Right. That's your 9 to 5, trading your time for a paycheck.
It's that paycheck you get every week or every 2 weeks.
Right. But the other two types of income are where things get interesting.
Okay, so what's passive income?
Think of it like this. It's money that works for you even while you sleep.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
Right. Things like rental income from properties you own,
So,
royalties from a book you've written.
so it's about building those assets that generate a steady stream of cash without you constantly having to work for it.
Exactly. You're not limited by the number of hours in a day.
And then there's portfolio income. What's that all about?
That comes from your investments, things like stocks and bonds, dividends.
So it's like growing your money without necessarily having to trade your time for it.
Right. And Kiyosaki really hammers home the point that the wealthy understand the importance of diversifying their income streams.
So it's not just about having one job or one source of income.
Exactly. It's about creating multiple avenues for wealth to flow into your life.
I like that. It's like building a safety net.
Yeah, but it's also a launch pad to achieve greater financial freedom.
And to really master this game, Kiyosaki talks about developing your financial intelligence.
Oh, yeah, financial IQ. He breaks that down even further.
What's those components?
He talks about accounting, investing, understanding markets.
It's like having a whole set of skills, right?
It's not just about being good at math. It's about being able to see opportunities and make informed decisions.
He also talks about the importance of understanding the law.
Yeah, especially when it comes to things like taxes and how corporations work.
And he's not saying everyone needs to become a lawyer or an accountant.
Right, but having a basic understanding of these concepts can really give you an edge.
And I think what makes the book so engaging is that Kiyosaki shares these really compelling stories from his own investment journey.
Yeah, it's not just theory. He's actually walked the walk.
One that stood out to me was when he talks about buying houses for bargain prices during a real estate downturn.
Oh, yeah, remember he snagged that house for like $45,000?
With like a $5,000 down payment.
And it was actually worth $65,000.
So he's using those market cycles to his advantage.
And then he turned around and rented it out, instantly creating positive cash flow.
So he's not just buying a house to live in, he's thinking about it as an investment.
Exactly. And he talks about using creative financing strategies to amplify his returns.
Like leveraging other people's money?
Yeah, he gives that great example of buying a piece of land for $9,000 and flipping it for over $25,000 in a short amount of time.
Wait, how'd he do that?
He got a loan from a friend
Oh, okay.
to make the initial purchase and then paid the loan back immediately with the profit from the sale.
So he's using leverage to control a larger asset and multiply his gains.
Exactly. And he talks about using similar strategies with things like small cap stocks.
Those are like the up-and-coming companies, right?
The ones with the potential for rapid growth, but they can also be risky.
High risk, high reward.
And Kiyosaki always emphasizes doing your due diligence, understanding the business you're investing in, and having a clear strategy.
It's about informed risk-taking, not just throwing money at something and hoping for the best.
Absolutely. And I love how Kiyosaki addresses the fear that holds people back.
Oh yeah, fear can be a big obstacle.
He acknowledges that risk is part of the game.
And he even quotes John D. Rockefeller.
Oh, what'd he say?
He said, "I always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity."
That's a powerful mindset shift.
It is, and he also talks about the importance of diversifying your investments.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Spread your risk across different asset classes.
Real estate, stocks, bonds, precious metals.
So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
And Kiyosaki's big on overcoming cynicism.
Oh yeah, because cynics can be a real downer.
They tend to focus on the negative, the reasons why something won't work.
And he gives that funny example of his friend who backed out of a real estate deal because he was worried about having to fix toilets.
It's like, come on, you're missing the bigger picture.
Right. Sometimes those small things can really hold people back.
And then there's laziness.
Ugh. The procrastination monster.
He links it to a lack of financial education and a desire for instant gratification.
So it's about being willing to put in the work to delay gratification.
And to think long term.
Like playing the long game.
Right. Exactly. Building wealth takes time and consistent effort.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
And neither are financial empires.
And let's not forget about bad habits.
Ooh, those pesky bad habits, especially those related to spending.
Kiyosaki contrasts the spending habits of the rich and poor.
Right. He does. He points out that the poor and middle class often buy luxury items to try to look rich.
It's like keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, but it puts them further into debt.
So it's a facade of wealth instead of building a solid foundation.
Whereas the wealthy tend to buy luxuries after they've already built a solid asset base.
Okay, so they're buying those things as a reward for their success.
Exactly. They understand that true luxury comes from investing and creating wealth.
And finally, we've got arrogance.
Ah, arrogance, the silent killer.
He says it often stems from insecurity and a fear of admitting what you don't know.
So it's a defense mechanism.
And it can prevent us from learning and growing.
He encourages readers to be humble, to seek out experts, to ask questions.
It's about recognizing that you don't know everything and being willing to learn from others.
Exactly. And once you've tackled those 5 internal roadblocks,
You're ready to start building your path to wealth.
and Kiyosaki gives some really practical steps for getting started.
Okay, what are they?
First, define your financial goals.
So figure out what you want to achieve.
Exactly. How much money do you need to make? What kind of lifestyle do you envision?
It's like having a destination in mind when you set out on a journey.
Right. You need to know where you're going to map out the best route.
And then he talks about investing in your financial education.
Read books, attend seminars, find mentors.
It's like that old saying, knowledge is power.
And in this case, financial knowledge is financial power.
He also suggests finding a financial formula that works for you and mastering it.
Whether it's real estate, stocks, or something else entirely.
Find what resonates with your strengths and interests.
And take action. Put those formulas into practice.
And of course, don't forget about paying yourself first.
Set aside a portion of your income before you do anything else.
Make it a non-negotiable part of your financial routine.
Prioritize your future self.
And surround yourself with the right people. Find advisors who are knowledgeable and experienced.
Network with other successful investors.
Learn from their insights and strategies.
It's like building a mastermind group.
And to really illustrate this idea of building wealth, Kiyosaki uses this powerful analogy of a pipeline.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
He says most people focus on filling buckets,
Working hard for a limited income
but the wealthy focus on building pipelines.
that generate passive income, allowing money to flow to them effortlessly.
It's about creating systems that work for you even when you're not actively working.
And he introduces the concept of the cash flow quadrant.
Oh yeah, this is a good one.
He divides it into 4 categories.
E for employee, S for self-employed, or small business owner.
B for business owner, and I for investor.
And he points out that most people fall into the E and S quadrants.
Trading their time for money.
But Kiyosaki argues that true financial freedom lies in the B and I quadrants.
Where you own systems and assets that generate income without your direct involvement.
So it's about moving from working in your business to working in your business.
And eventually to owning assets that work for you.
And that's the ultimate goal, right?
To create a life where you're not chained to a job, where you have the freedom to pursue your passions.
And to live life on your own terms.
And that's what makes Rich Dad, Poor Dad so much more than just a guide to financial success.
It's a blueprint for achieving a life of purpose, freedom, and fulfillment.
Kiyosaki challenges readers to think differently about money, to question conventional wisdom,
And to take control of their financial destiny.
he empowers you to create a life where wealth is a tool for creating the life you desire. He really wants you to see that it's not just about getting rich, it's about designing a life you love.
Right, and that's something we touched on earlier. You know, that balance between financial freedom and fulfillment.
Yeah, and he illustrates this beautifully with that story about his former classmate,
Oh yeah, the one who was making a ton of money.
but was absolutely miserable.
Miserable. Like, what's the point?
It's a powerful reminder that true success isn't just about your bank account.
It's about finding that alignment between your financial goals and what truly brings you joy.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki challenges us to really ask ourselves those tough questions.
Like, what am I passionate about? What kind of impact do I want to make?
How can I use my resources to support that vision?
It's about finding that sweet spot where your passions, skills, and financial goals all intersect.
And that's where his emphasis on continuous learning comes in.
Right? Yeah, he's a big believer in that.
Constantly seeking out new knowledge, exploring different strategies, never stop growing.
He reminds us that the world is constantly changing. We need to be adaptable to thrive.
It's like he's saying, don't let your education end after you graduate.
The real learning starts when you step out into the world.
Exactly. And find mentors who can guide you along the way.
People who have already achieved the kind of success you're aiming for.
Learn from their experiences, their insights.
It's like having a shortcut, but you still got to put in the work.
Of course, there are no shortcuts to real success.
Now, Kiyosaki ends the book with a really thought-provoking statement that I wanted to touch on.
Oh, yeah, that one really stuck with me, too.
He says, money is only an idea.
It's so simple, yet so profound.
It really makes you rethink your whole perspective on money and wealth.
Like, it's not this tangible thing, it's a tool.
A means to an end.
And it's how we use it, how we think about it, that shapes its impact on our lives.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I want to leave our listeners with this final thought.
Okay.
Take responsibility for your financial future.
Don't wait for someone to hand you a roadmap.
Educate yourself, develop those skills, and take action.
Your financial destiny is in your hands.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad gives you the tools and the inspiration to start building the life you deserve.
It's a powerful message, and I think it's one that resonates with so many people.
Absolutely. So if you haven't already, definitely check out Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
You won't regret it.
And join us next time as we continue to explore these powerful ideas and strategies for creating a life of financial freedom and fulfillment